guys, I am Mr. Brass. And today I decided I would talk philosophy and its general application. Today's subject will be the burden of proof. I will be using philosophy professor Harry J. Gensler's definition of it on page 40 of his book The A to Z of Logic. He defines it as such: burden of proof. Some beliefs, like those of common sense or those about a person's legal innocence, are generally presumed to be true unless there is strong contrary evidence. Whoever denies such beliefs has the responsibility to provide this contrary evidence. The burden of proof in of itself is not a purely logical or purely ethical principle, but rather is an interpersonal protocol in which we agree on assumptions and other ideas, and we discuss these things based on the assumptions. There is the idea that the one who makes the positive claim has the burden of proof, but this is absurd, as that is a positive claim in of itself which you can't prove. The burden of proof depends on the situation and whom you are talking to. If your best friend or family member tells you something, you generally believe what they say unless you are given a good reason to doubt them. Science has a guilty till proven innocent principle, while in a court of law it is the other way around, so this isn't just a one-size-fits-all matter. To satisfy the burden of proof, all you have to do is to provide a valid and sound argument that provides warrant for your claim. Once you've done that, you've filled your obligation. Whether someone finds them satisfactory is irrelevant. Unless they can show how your argument is flawed, your argument still stands. As a rule of thumb, what you should do before you engage in a debate is to make sure your opponent understands what a rational proof is and what would be considered evidence for and against their own position. Now, with any rules of a debate, the rules have to be agreed on by all involved beforehand, or else they aren't valid rules. No one who is reasonable or logical would impose rules onto someone else that the person that they're talking to doesn't agree to. There is also this misconception that the burden of proof means to prove something to someone else's satisfaction, which is pseudo-intellectualism at its finest. Nowhere in court or in science is that the case, nor should it be in regular conversations. Just because you're personally not satisfied with an argument doesn't mean you can say your opponent hasn't offered evidence. Generally in court, in science, you're trying to convince a third party and not just someone you're talking to. I take a lawyer-style debating myself. When I go into a conversation in a public forum with people, I don't go in trying to convince my opponent, but rather the audience and or the judges. I make the assumption that while it is possible that the conversation will make my opponent rethink his position, it is far more likely it won't, as my opponent has too much invested in being right. Overall, what the burden of proof reduces down to is that if you are trying to convince someone of a position, you should give them a reason to believe you. This is Mr. Brass saying goodbye and get wise.